For this video, I'm going to explain how you will need to complete your worksheet in Chapter 5. You will need to complete this worksheet and turn it in to your instructor next week to receive a grade. Last week, as a class, you chose two different surfaces that you wanted to collect bacteria off of. You chose surface A and surface B. You chose surface A as being a surface that you thought was clean, or a surface that had less bacteria is a better way to put it. You also chose a surface B, which you considered your dirty surface, or having more bacteria. For example, some of you might have swapped the poster in the lab room as being your clean surface. You also might have swapped the lab door handle as being your dirty surface, or the surface you thought that would have more bacteria. Now, you grew these bacteria on agar, which is that yellow substance that you see in your petri dish. That is the medium that provided a food source for your bacteria to grow. So now we can see colonies of bacteria. Each one of these little dots have many bacteria in each colony. As a class, we then would have counted how many bacterial colonies do we have on side A and how many bacterial colonies do we have on side B. We are going to say that we have 10 total petri dishes as a class. As a class, you and your partner would have picked up one petri dish and did the counts for side A and did the counts for side B. We're going to say that we have 10 petri dishes as a class to complete this worksheet. Your worksheet on page 31 has two tables that you will need to complete. You have a table for surface A. You also have a table for surface B. In each table, we recorded the frequency of the colonies in our petri dish. For example, as a class, we would have counted on surface A how many of you had 0 colonies on side A in your petri dish. In this case, we had a frequency of 1, meaning one petri dish out of the class had 0 colonies on side A. Let's look at another example. What about one number of colonies? We had a frequency of 2. That means 2 of our 10 petri dishes had 1 colony on side A. You would do this all the way up to more than 10 number of colonies for side A. You then did the same exact thing for side B. You recorded the frequency, so how often did we have 0 number of colonies? How often did we have 1 colony? How often did we have 2 colonies? And so on. After you completed all of the counts for side A and all of the counts for side B and recorded them in the table, you then created a histogram as a class. A histogram is a visual representation of the data that you collected here in your table. For those of you that are turning this in and weren't able to come to a makeup lab, you will need to use these numbers on this worksheet to complete your histogram and turn in page 31 for a grade next week. I will also post a copy of these numbers in your Blackboard account. You will not complete the worksheet on page 33. You will only do the worksheet on page 31. So let's talk about how you would create your histogram down here. This is an example of what your histogram might look like. It's a graph that you can visualize these numbers in your table. For example, if I am graphing surface A and surface B, I need to distinguish what I'm going to call surface A and what I'm going to call surface B. For my graph, I called surface A as having diagonal lines, and then I called surface B as having dotted lines, not lines, dots in the graph, excuse me. You will first need to label what you're going to call surface A and what you're going to call surface B. You also need to label your X and Y axis. My X-axis will be the number of colonies. My Y-axis will be the frequency, or how often these colonies occurred. Let's look at an example. Let's look at number of colonies on surface A at 0. We had a frequency of 1 on side A at 0 number of colonies. So if I go down here to my graph, I can look at 0 number of colonies. For surface A, I had a frequency of 1. What about side B at 0 number of colonies? At 0 number of colonies on side B, I had a frequency of 0. So back here to my graph, for surface B, I can graph a frequency of 0. You will do this all the way from 0 to more than 10 number of colonies to complete your histogram. Keep in mind that for those of you that were not able to come to a makeup lab, I am giving you these numbers to use. The total number of plates that we're using to create this histogram is 10. If you have any questions on how to complete your worksheet, please ask your lab instructor. Again, you will not turn in page 33. I will continue this discussion about histograms in a separate video.